All right, guys, welcome. Since it's Sunday, I'd like to start with a word of prayer. Dave, could you? No, just kidding, just kidding. A lot of familiar faces here. Some people I've met for the first time today. Some people I haven't met at all yet. As Max told you, my name is Abe Duque, and I'm a bit of a dinosaur in the music industry. Well, dinosaurs are really cool.
What kind of dinosaur?
I don't know. Which is your favorite, Max?
Yeah. Tyrannosaurus.
I like the carnivores. Those are cool. But anyway, meaning that I'm old and I've been around forever. I started my career in the 80s here in New York. Yes, it doesn't seem that way because I look like a young 27-year-old. But yeah, it was back in the 80s, the days of Latin hip-hop or early hip-hop as well. And house music was just getting started and all that stuff. Got my start with some guys from Brooklyn, guy that's really still doing a lot today, and another friend of mine, Victor Calderon and Gene LaFosse. At that time, they had a project called Program 2. And I was a young guy who got smitten by synthesizers and all there is to do with studio stuff back when he was 13 or 14 years old. Somehow I got to meet them, and somehow they let me hang around the studio. They let me sit around and watch them and see what the process of making a record. And from time to time, they would let me go get coffee, and as well as maybe they would let me play keyboards. And I think finally in 1989, they gave me credit on a record called Running Man. I was credited as additional keyboards. So 1989, I got in the 80s. I was making music since the 80s, officially speaking. After that, I had several waves of in and out of the music industry, some better than others. At a certain point, I came very close to quitting many times. Maybe even did quit a couple of times and came back. I think the first time I quit, it was like in 92. Seems like a million years ago now, but I was ready to just leave it all behind. And then I met the right person. Somehow it's all about meeting the right person sometimes. And that person introduced me to another person, and that opened up a whole new network of people for me to talk to and to show my music to. Had a good time in the 90s where I got myself to Europe, got myself signed to a label in Munich called Disco B, and that label was pretty hot at the time. Disco B, I think, my favorite techno label not just because I was on it, but it really was a very important label for the whole scene and for everything that they supported and that they fostered. After that time, I worked up to, I think I did 3 or 4 albums on Disco B. At the end of the 90s, I worked on my most ambitious album, where I just really went crazy, putting everything I had on the line for this album, and finished it off, and I thought, man, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one that puts me over the top into the next level. And then the album was... The album was due to come out, and the date for the release of that album was September 2001. Everybody knows what happened in September 2001. It actually was supposed to come out just a couple of days after 9/11 hit. 9/11 hit, everything just went nuts, and my album just got overlooked completely. It might have sucked as well, who knows, but the chances are, according to my trajectory at least, the chances are that it was actually going to do at least a little something, and it actually did nothing. So it really knocked me down. I quit. I quit making music at that point. Got a job down at Wall Street, working for J.P. Morgan for a bit. My brother-in-law got me in. Worked there for about a year and a half, and I had just gotten married, so it's a good thing to have a good, stable job, when you just get married. Any newlyweds around here? No? No? Oh, right there. So you know what I'm talking about. Right on. Right. So it's a good thing to have like a stable income, and because living as an artist, it's like hand to mouth. It's like feast or famine. There's no real security in it, right? So it was good first year. But I remember about a year and a half into it, I was in the elevator in J.P. Morgan at 40 Wall Street, I think, and I looked at my brother-in-law and I said, "I'm so effing." Can I curse on? I'm just going to say effing. "I'm so effing bored." And he looked at me like, "What the hell is wrong with you? Dude, you're making money, everything's..." I'm like, and he couldn't get it. And that conversation didn't go past that point. I actually just walked home and just became very depressed because I felt like I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, which, well, I guess it is anything to do with music, production, and so on. So I went to my wife, and I said, "Wife," her name is Suzanne, I said, "Please, one more year. Just let me do it for one more year." And she said, "Yeah." Amazingly enough, I thought she was going to say, "Get out of here, go back to work, we need the money." And then I did. And then I, once again, went to work with everything I had, with all the time that I had, giving it all I had to try to make it happen again. It happened. It blew up, actually. In 2004, I had the biggest record I ever did release. I had a release with a guy named Blake Baxter, a record called What Happened. Sold 25,000 vinyls in a time. Yeah, I know. Got about 100 licensing requests. But the deal that I made with Blake, and Blake is a crazy guy, he said, "Abe, we're going to do this track, but we're going to do this record," because it was more than a track, it was 3 tracks. "But we're never going to license it." And I was like, "Really? Okay." So every day I would get a licensing request, and I would have to turn it down. "Sorry, as per the deal I have with Mr. Blake Baxter, I cannot license you this record." So the record was never licensed. That was just cool because I kept on selling it myself, and everything was great. And from that point on, the doors blew up. I mean, it was just everybody wanted a piece of me. Couldn't beat the gigs away with a stick. It was just that lucrative a time, and didn't know it was happening until like 4 months into it. It was great. It was great. It was a great time. And then a slew of hits came after. Somehow, whether it was just because I was, doing the right thing, or whether people focused on me now because of the one hit I have. Sometimes I think that when people see you have something good, they think everything you do is gold. I don't know, maybe you guys have seen that or felt that about certain artists. And yeah, it went super well. I couldn't tell you, everything I was involved with. I was doing things with Helmut Lang. I was doing things with the Pet Shop Boys, with Moby, with anybody you could imagine, Miss Kitten, Chemical Brothers. It was just every dream I ever had in the industry. Touring like a maniac, lived out of my suitcase for I'd say the next 6, 7 years, it was just living out of my suitcase, just touring the world. How terrible is that, huh? Well, I'll tell you, it was bad at the end because, you just anything that you do too much of, it could drive you crazy. When I started to think about what would be exotic in my life, and I thought, oh yeah, maybe staying at home, that would be exotic. I started feeling like, a vacation for me would be being at home. And I still feel that way. I still don't like traveling. But times progressed, and well, my wife and I wanted to have kids, and it came to a point where my wife got pregnant, and I had to make a call, because as it was, I was spending more time on the road than at home, and I didn't really have a way to really, or a plan for really having any children, but it happened. And I made the call. I thought, if I'm going to have kids at this age, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to be part of their lives, and I'm not going to have them say daddy's on the road. But doing that would require me being able to make some money somehow. And I was like, how do I make some money if I can't tour? Because touring is where the money's at, really. I mean, a lot of the money. There's other ways of getting money these days. Dave knows. He's he's a rich man. If you want to speak to him, But then a guy that you guys might have heard of, John Selway, came to me and said, hey, there's a school. It's called Dubspot. They're hiring. You want to teach there? And I was like, what? Yeah, sure. And I always had this like secret fantasy to like become a teacher, you know. I wanted to like, I thought when I thought of myself being a teacher, like kindergarten or first grade, but that's kind of really unrealistic if I think about it. But then this opportunity of coming to Dubspot came about, and I dropped it all, and I started to teach, and I think I was good at it. I mean, I see some of your faces of people that were at Dubspot coming back to see me. Maybe I owe them money or something. That's why they're here. But, yeah. So I had a great time. And I was teaching until about, I don't know, a couple of years ago where that all went south. And then ever since then, I've been back in the studio again. Went back and found my studio. During the years of teaching, I was so busy on it's twins, 2 girls. During those years of teaching, and taking care of kids, I had no chance to get back in the studio. I had a studio. I always had a studio. I had a house in Hollis. I have my basement. Studio's been there since the early 90s when I built it. And every so often, every few months, I'd go back in the studio, look in there, and somehow it would get more in shambles as time progressed. And I wasn't even in there. I was like, how is this happening? And I was telling somebody before, it felt like, those creepy houses where you go into the attic and you have like, tarps thrown over things and dust everywhere. That's how and I have a pretty substantial studio. I mean, I have every piece of gear you could probably ever want. But it was just no way in any shape for me to like to do anything with it. So then that Dubspot thing was over. I was like, hey, let's get back in here. And it took me a while to get that studio back together. It took me a few weeks of like dusting everything off, testing everything, rewiring everything, which is, anybody ever have to rewire a studio? You know what I mean then, getting it perfect. I mean, you could, we were talking about this before, you could wire up a couple of things and do something, but you never feel adequate when you're sitting in a full studio and it's just, not all ready to go. Organization is one of the points that I want to discuss today. Was and is one of the main components of getting yourself going right. So yeah, I thought my teaching times were over, but just when I thought it was over, Max pulls me back. I actually didn't really want to get back into education. Just thought I'd been there, done that. Girls are big enough, they don't need their dad anymore. I could become a traveling troubadour again. No, just kidding. But the truth is, Max I always loved Max, and Max and I always really kind of got along at Dubspot. Was that money? Yeah. All right, so Max asked me to teach a masterclass, and then subsequently asked me to teach a course on mixing and mastering, which is one of the courses that I was teaching at Dubspot. I was really happy to do so. But then he pulls a fast one on me, and a few days ago he says, hey, I was thinking maybe we could change it up and we could have you talk about your creative process, huh? What do you think? And of course, I'm the type of guy that never says no. You always say yes, or you fake it until you make it. I said, yeah, sure. Whatever you say, Max. Isn't that what I said? Yeah. Yeah, he went off and he even wrote up the whole thing about what I was going to do without actually asking me. But the truth is, I did really want to explore that. Never really had to do a master class on this. I've had plenty of experiences with creativity and plenty of experience with using creativity and learning how to harness creativity, but never really had to formulate it into a talk. of some sort. So I sat down for the last week and really wrote copious notes on this stuff. I never really teach with notes. Anybody in my classes before never saw me with notes. I don't wing it, but I usually just speak from experience or from what I have in my mind, but I didn't really want to miss any points. So if you see me reading something, it's because I really went through the kind of job of like putting this together in a way that might make any sense, because some of these thoughts are going to be kind of deep and maybe a little too out there for just kind of like wing. How are we doing, Blob? You're not Blob anymore, right? It's great to see a lot of you guys, really. It's actually amazing. I was nervous before I saw you guys, and then now that I see you guys, I feel like I'm back at home. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, the creative process. Anybody ever have any trouble with creativity? I think it's a constant battle, including for anybody. I don't think there's anybody in the world that can say that creativity is something they got and they don't have to work at. Actually, to tell you the truth, I've met some people that are insanely creative. I mean, these are freaks. They're really freaks. I've met maybe 3 or 4. I know a guy who told me, one of the most creative guys I know, he told me this story, and I'm going to kill him. He's like, hey man, last night I was sleeping, and then I was listening, and I was thinking about this song, and I was thinking about these lyrics, and then I woke up and I just wrote them down. And then I had this song all written in my sleep. I'm like, what the hell? Does this really happen? Is this and he played me the song after that. And I'm like, I hate you. I mean, come on. Is that even possible? And if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would have not been... I hate this guy. Well, I don't hate him. He's actually one of my good friends. But the fact that he can do that, or he's the same type of guy that can think of a melody on the train and then come home and remember exactly the melody and write it down. I can never remember the melody again. I can think of amazing melodies, but I forget them like a millisecond after I think them, or at least I think they're amazing. I know another guy. It's probably one of the guys that, I don't know if he would think of himself as one of my mentors, but I did learn a lot from him, and he's dead now. His name was Mika Vainio. He was a producer, a Finnish guy, and they came from this kind of Finnish scene of like very strange noise type of music. And the guy, it was probably one of the most insane musical minds that I've ever met. And the guy would work things out in his head, and all he needed to do is come and translate it and put it down, which is, it's impossible. Anybody can do that? Can anybody do that here? Because I'm going to ask you to leave if you can. If you can work things out in your head and then just go ahead and transcribe it, I mean, you don't need to be here. I can't even do that. But these people exist. They exist, and they are rare, though. They are rare. Most of us, need to kind of figure this out and how to foster this stuff. So I've written down a few things that I think can maybe help give you an insight into how I go about thinking about this. I think it starts, for me, with clarity. Clarity is the number one thing. Now, clarity, what is just a general term. I mean, I wrote down the definition here. It's the quality of being easy to see or hear. But what I mean by clarity is basically, we know that we want to get somewhere. We know that we want to achieve a goal. We know that we want to, but sometimes we even fool ourselves in these thoughts that we don't really have these goals really worked out in a clearest, most concise way. We think we do, and I think back about some of the goals that I had. There were, like, for example, I want to be awesome, and I want all the girls to love me, and I want to be able to, make people cry on the dance floor. These are my goals. Okay, sure, that might work, But I think these goals, and if you have to be honest for yourself, you have to really think about how these goals of need to be a little more clear than what we have set. And I think that we can never, ever stop defining these goals. We can never really stop getting these goals in line. So let me just, let's just go through a couple of other definitions here, and we'll get to clarity in a second. So creativity, just for those that want to know, is the use of imagination or original ideas, especially in the production of artistic work. And I think real creativity comes with the understanding of the purpose for the use, the context for what this creativity is going to be. This is the real use of it. So creativity, a lot of people can say you have a crisis or whatever, but creativity is the use of the imagination, right? And so imagination is the faculty of forming new ideas or images or concepts of external objects not present to the senses. Everybody has an imagination. Does everybody know, or does anybody know the Imagination song from South Park? Come on, you don't know the Imagination song? It's stupid. It's just, I'm not going to sing the Imagination song, but if you have imagine it. Okay, I'm stopping there because it goes on for about another 30 seconds. If you have time, go check it out. It's the Imagination song. It's just sort of a funny sort of thing to say at this point about imagination, but everybody has one. Everybody has an imagination. The problem is not having imagination. The problem is being able to take the things from imagination and bring them into the real world. So let's break it down. I think if we have to think of it, we should think of it like this. There's order in the world and there's chaos, right? We should stand somewhere on the line between order and chaos, right? So order is everything that is put together. Do I have a definition for order? Maybe not. So I wrote, order is what, as artistic beings, bring out of chaos. So we have order, and then we have chaos. So we stand kind of one foot in both or on the line, and we peer into chaos. We look at chaos and we decide, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm going to give that purpose and make it meaningful and structure it and bring it into chaos, into order from the chaos. That's really it. That's the idea of what's happening with the creative process. It is bringing order from chaos and giving it something meaningful. Now, we can bring order all the time from chaos. We could do it right now. Let's try a little experiment, guys. You ready? Close your eyes. I would do a magic trick. Close your eyes. Seriously, try it. Imagine a house. Imagine a beautiful house. Imagine it's next to a river. Imagine birds flying around this house. Imagine now that there's a horse that's riding up to the house. Okay, stop. So that was your imagination at work. Awesome, right? Now, if you could take that vision that you had in your head about the house, the beautiful house, the horse, or whatever, and perfectly draw everything you saw, who can do that? Anybody? I'm looking for these creative people. If you could do that, then you would be, having not to take this course. That's the problem. The problem is not that you can't imagine. The problem is that it's hard to pull that stuff and bring it into the real world and give it context and package it and have people think it's awesome. That's the problem. Now, let's try it again. Let's try it. Close your eyes. Now, this time, imagine the perfect beat. Imagine the perfect bass line. Imagine, if you're a rapper or a singer, lyrics. Okay, stop. Now you know what I'm getting at. It's happening in your head, right? Now how do you translate that? How do you bring it over? That's the problem. Therein lies the bottleneck. Therein lies the problem with the throughput. So what we need to do is figure out how we're going to set ourselves up to be able to do that. That's basically the whole idea here. So I think the first thing we need to worry about is order. And now we are in order. We live in an ordered world, and organization are the actions you take to establish order. So if you imagine in in the mega world, there's government and there's institutions of learning and things like that, and this order gives us a structure so that things can get done, right? And in our regular lives, let's think about just for ourselves. One of the simplest things that we do to establish order in our regular lives is, say, cleanliness, right? Keep myself clean. Yeah, that keeps you from infection. That keeps you, from having people walk away from you. It gives you better chances with the opposite sex. No, right? No, am I wrong about this?
Or same sex.
Or same sex. That's right. A desire, whatever sex you desire. Let's see. But it also, it's a financial structuring for your own personal life can give you, good times when it's, when bad times are coming. You could have a way to be able to not fall into the pit of tragedy, which is chaos. Chaos can bring on tragedy, and we need to somehow face this tragedy, right? So we do things to order ourselves, to prepare ourselves for these situations. So we have, let's see, what else? Well-maintained relationships, putting in the work that it takes. It's not easy to be married, right? No, I'm married now 18 years. It's really not easy. But any relationship, you need to kind of put some maintenance into it and, establish some sort of order. So what are we going to do? What type of order am I talking about for the studio or for us as musicians? So let's see. I have some things written down here. Let's see. Here we are. Examples. Studio wired correctly. Right? We already went through that, right? It sounds like, a lot of times you're just impatient. You just want to get to the good stuff, right? You just want to go immediately and just start making the amazing beats and having everybody think you're so awesome or whatever. But the truth is, none of this is going to happen before we get some preliminary things out of the way. For example, even just preparing yourself to be able to capture the moments. Any vocalists in the room? Any vocalists? All right, so we have vocalists. So if you don't have your mic ready to record, this could be a tragedy, because if you can't remember exactly the lyrics or the melodies, if you don't have a way to capture that. Now these days everybody's lucky has a phone and can just talk into their phone if they're into that. But back in my day, you really had to have a mic ready to go. But let's say sometimes I wake up in the morning and I have this special voice, kind of gravelly from the night before, and you're like, oh man, my voice sounds awesome right now. And if you could just hit record at that point and capture that, you're lucky. Why? Because you're prepared. So let's see what else we have here. And remember that luck is a combination of preparation and chance, right? So if you're ready to take a chance, you get lucky. Pen and paper, ready for action. A clean work environment. I know it sounds like your dad trying to tell you to go clean your room or something like that, but no, a clean work environment, it really means a lot. And we could talk about archetypical stories or things of that sort, but I was talking to a friend who was telling me about, he's working with a lot of Japanese people, and he said he goes, you ever realize you ever go to see a Japanese temple and you ever see there's always some dude sweeping up, and cleaning up, no matter what. It's perfectly, it's set up, and it was always some guy cleaning up. It's because they have this belief that within the dirt, within all the little grimy stuff, live these bad spirits, these bad demons of that kind of trip up your life and change things. Now, that's taking it to the extreme. If you went to my studio, you'd probably be like, dude, what are you talking about? This is kind of dirty on here. But there is something to say about the idea of keeping things well organized. Because for sure, within really, really, really bad organization, you're going to have a situation where demons will arise and come and bite you in the ass. So keeping your place clean, your computer files organized, all right? I mean, come on, seriously, you know, these days it's the biggest mess for most people. And you think, I'm so cool, I have a big mess here, look how disorganized I am. I'm like this, you know, kooky professor type of person. Really, is that going to be the final say when you need that file and you can't find it? You know, so these are things that if you know, you can combat right now. So cables sorted, instruments tuned if you're like a musician, a guitarist, or some sort of, you know, drummer that needs their instruments tuned right, or skins maintained, or whatever. And then there's your time. There's your time, the organization of your time. It's a must to have these things put together this way. Now, there's also, you know, I talk about order now, it sounds like a, you know, crotchety old guy, get off my lawn, you know, get your act together, get order. But there's also a little bit of we could talk the other side of this, and beware of too much order. And what I say by that is that, you know, our jobs are to ride the line between order and chaos and to reach into chaos while being anchored in order and pull out the new, fresh, exploitable ideas, right? But if we spend all our time and all our effort on organization, obviously we're not going to be able to do any of that because we're going to spend all our time on that. So I had, you know, I got lucky, you know, Max could attest to this. You meet as an instructor, guys like you, or people like you, you get to meet all sorts of types and you get to hear a lot of experiences. And, you know, I had a student once who took the master course at Dubspot. The master course was like every class they had, every single class. And it was like, done. It was the last day of the last class, and they were like, all right. And they seriously came up to me and said, I was thinking that maybe I should take the course again, just to make sure that I get everything right. I'm like, no. Go. Get stuff done now. Get out of here. A lot of people got addicted to being there, I remember, and were a little bit afraid to like kind of leave the nest. But these type of things happen, and you all know the person. They are always talking about their studio, and they're like, yeah, you know, when I get that sound card, and when I set up my plugins, and when I do this, that's when everything's going to go off, right? And they have this mindset that when this other thing that they're working, and they're constantly working on making it better and better, but they're never really reaching into the chaos and pulling out something now. So there has to be kind of a workable balance between the order that you establish and in order to help you, sorry to pun that, but to help you pull the creativity out of the chaos. And, you know, how much is too much? Well, when you're not making any music, when you're not trying to bring things out, then it's not happening. Yes?
Just like, if you could expand on this a little bit, I thought this is a question I kind of had. It's like along the topic of what you're just talking about. When you are looking for tools to use and are kind of trying to get your setup going, how do you know that you have the right tools going on? And, you know, it's like, how do you, I guess you have to spend some time with them, but I don't know, I'm trying to think of the best way to formulate the question, but it's like when you're getting all these tools, you're trying to pick the gear, and how do you know that you have the right tool, you know? How do you, like...
You know, at a certain point, you spend enough effort on trying to do that, and then you have to turn around, face the dragon, and deal with whatever you have.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I remember in the beginning when I first started, I had a 8-channel mixer, a sampler, and a rock, and a pack of bubble gum. And I always said, I always saw these amazingly set up studios, and I was like, oh man. And you know, the thought that always came in my head was like, when will I be allowed to actually make a track? When will I have like, you know, when would I be worthy or rate that level of like, you know, that everybody else has? So at a certain point, you just have to kind of like go.
Yeah.
and do and hope. All right, so let's see. So yeah, always preparing, never delivering, not good. Let me see what else I got for you guys here. So let's go through some of the things that I think can help you beyond clarity. Like clarity now, so clarity, let me just expand a little bit on clarity. Now, clarity is super important that you get the exact idea of what exactly you want to do. And here's what I recommend. I recommend you speak it out loud or at least write it down. And you speak it out loud to people, to witnesses. Because when you do that, it really formulates it. It really puts it out there. Now, without getting too metaphysical here, there's a thing called the logos. Anybody know what the logos is? Logos is the word of God, right, in Judeo-Christian tradition, that brings the order out from the chaos. If you read like in Genesis, the logos is that word of God, the word. In the beginning of it was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God, right? And it is that, you know, and I'm not trying to get you guys to believe in God or anything. What I'm trying to get at is that there is this concept, and the reason I think one of the reasons that these stories last forever is that there are these amazing truths that don't go away. And this idea of the logos, of using the power of the word to begin to activate the action, is super, super important. And it's not enough to think something, because when you speak it, you commit to it. When somebody else hears you say it, you commit to it. When you write it down, it is somehow committing to it. It is spending energy on actually having it. So I would do, you know, some of these exercises, these writing exercises where you kind of write and you get down all your ideas concisely and to the point, and maybe then speak them to people and tell people what you want to do to get you going. I remember one time I did some work a few years ago for Bad Boy, for P. Diddy. And I went up there, I did some mixes with DJ Hell for him. So Hell and I went to visit Bad Boy Studios, and Diddy was there, and he's a crazy guy. He comes over, he goes, get them the pages. And I'm like, okay. So some person goes into the office and prints out these 3 pages worth of just words on there. He goes, here, this is what I've been thinking about. This is what I want you guys to concentrate on. This is what we're doing. And there were words in there like unorthodox, words like, he had Dirty South written on there. I don't know what he meant by that. He had like all sorts of words of inspirational words that really kind of, sorry about that, kind of triggered thoughts and ideas and kind of, and this is, I say, this is the best example in the real life of what I've seen of being and using the power of the logo. So now I have those 3 pages posted on my studio, on my wall. And from time to time, I'm not creative. I look up and I see some things on there, and I take, and it always works. It always works. I look up and I go, oh yeah, all right, just kind of a reminder. So the power of the word. Use the power of the word. It's a little bit of a mystical thing, but hey, it is a real world thing as well. It will help you. Any questions? Don't want to just barrel through this. Okay, so let's see, what else do I have for you? And I might talk a lot more than I might make music. I mean, I'm already, how long do I have? Up to 2? We're going to make some music as well. I'm going to show you some of my, but I really want to get through this because I really think this is something that you guys need to hear. Because I never really had anybody explain this to me in this way. So how do we tap into creativity? So it's easy enough to peer into the chaos and look at the stuff that we want to pull in. But we need to figure out what we can do to get it. So training is going to be one of the aspects that we need to focus on. So you must practice being creative. And that means, why do musicians jam? It means we want to get, what happens is that these layers of things, of mechanical thought that we always have to go through in order to perform or to pull anything out. So, you're a drummer, right? And you spend many years doing it. And at this point, you could probably, you know, do it without thinking. You could probably be doing your taxes while you're drumming, right? But it takes a while to get to that level of proficiency. It takes a while to get yourself, you know, DJs is another example. DJing is a creative endeavor as well. A DJ, you know, new DJs are freaking out in their heads, thinking about a million things at the same time. They're not really, and it's so hard to just be in this moment. It's so hard to just be, and to tap into the creative ether and be able to just pull it out and deliver it on cue. Because why? Well, there's all these barriers that happen when we have all these layers of mechanical thought that we use our brains for and which distract us to actually what our purpose is. So if you have to think about, I got to hit this here, I got to hit that there, and hit there, and if you have to think about that, well, then that's one layer. But if you can get rid of that and just have your muscle memory go through that, then no problem. But then there's other levels of skill that you could master, which will get you to, you know, a point where you're actually doing it and not really consciously thinking about what you're doing. At that point, you can just then look into the ether, into the chaos, and start pulling out the stuff. But if you have all these layers, and they exist all the time, and you can never really get rid of all of the layers. All these layers are always there. There's going to be an infinite amount of layers. So you always got to work on getting better and polishing and polishing and polishing. But training should not be left to those, you know, I'm not a musician. I don't need to create, you know, to train to be creative. Now, if you're not a musician and all you're trying to do is come up with creative ideas, you still need to train on how to harness these ideas. So let's see just some of the things I've written down here so I just don't forget. So if you're a singer, you must sing very often in many different circumstances. If you play an instrument, same applies. When we practice, we get rid of layers of mechanical thought, and this is what I said before. And then the DJ thing. So as a DJ, if I'm not playing for a month, let's say I didn't play out for a month, I feel really rusty. And when I get out there, my brain is on a million different things that it shouldn't be on. It really shouldn't be on until I hit that zone where I feel free again, and I'm not wondering where this knob is or where this is or how this is set up or is my monitor okay? Do I look okay? You know, I hit this zone where, you know, I can just fly. And if you're doing that, if I'm DJing on, say I'm on a tour and I'm playing like 2 or 3 times a week at least, you know, within like half of the tour or towards the end of the tour, you could do this in your sleep. The first day on the tour, it's not the same. So training is something that we're going to have to kind of put into our organizational schedule. Okay, so another thing is to learn how to change your state. Learn how to change your state, because the creativity happens in different ways and in different states. So what do I mean by that? Well, you're in the studio, you've been there all day, take a walk, change it up, go to another room, go visit somebody, go take a bath, do something else to change your state. I don't know, have a beer, whatever it takes. But change your state. Yes?
I want to ask you a question about your last point. I totally agree with what you're saying as far as training and getting to the point where it's like second nature to do your craft. So because of that, do you suggest that people focus on one specific thing? Especially like for me, because I'm taking the Ableton class and like finding out all the things that Ableton can do. Sometimes I like want to learn it all, and I'm like, I feel like, you know, I'm constantly in this battle between like trying to learn more things and then really wanting to get better at the one main thing that I want the most. So what do you think about that?
Well, sometimes we have to be patient, and we do have to fill in all the other holes before we can get to the main point. So if you have a lot of, you know, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link, right? So if you have all these links in your chain that are not going to work, you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to get those straight and in line. Like I said, when I came back, after I left HubSpot, when I came back to try to get back in the studio, it is only now that things are starting to flow again the same way they were flowing 10 years ago. And we're talking about a year of like going nuts, you know, putting my studio back together, trying to make tracks, trying to write. You know, you think you're doing good, but I can see the road. I see the progress, and it really, after all the experience that I have in teaching and all this stuff, I still, to get to like fighter form, think about like a fighter, like a boxer. You know, you can't just say, I'll take that fight and then just go out and fight. You got to spend months of training. And it starts with jogging and running, and then it starts with, you know, seriously getting into like a pyramid so you can get to this point, you know. But if you don't have any of these, it's just a hope and a dream. It's as good as like lotto at that point. Yes.
Hey, but I think what Antonio is also referring to is if you're new to a lot of this, like learning it for the first time, and let's say you're in a class situation as a student, and you're getting presented a lot of new material every day or week, and you're trying to learn all that, and so you're spending time on that and I guess energy on that, but then at the same time you kind of have an idea of where you want to go and what you want to focus on. How do you kind of distribute your energy? Is that
Right. I mean, especially because there's only so much time in the day.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, like for me personally, I would like to produce tracks, but I also like to DJ. And when we learned how to DJ recently, I was getting into that, and then I had this thought where I was like, well, I just spent 2 hours on this that could have been making my production better. And it's like, so I'm like, I feel like I need to make a decision.
You do have to
But-
make a
but
decision.
People have all different perspectives. Some
They-
people say you should have
Right, and there are different types of brains and different types of multitasking possibilities that certain people can handle and some people can't. What you have to figure out is you have to know yourself, and you have to know what's going to work and what's going to get you to the goal that's, you know, with clarity to the next goal that you really need to achieve. But be realistic about what you're trying to achieve. You know, if you're taking on a lot and realizing you're not quickly getting to the goal that you want, is it that, you know, you're just impatient, or is it that you really are having the wrong approach at something? Now, it is true that focusing on one thing can really get you results. So if you put me on a deserted island with just this drum machine, and I'm just sitting there and I'm just focusing on this one drum machine, I could make it within like 3 months. You'll come back, I'll be all hairy and, you know, whatever, but you'll come back and I'll have some amazing things delivered from just this one drum machine. Now, is that enough to meet my overarching goal of what I want to do in my artistic endeavors? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe, you know, from then I'll be the drum machine king, but all I really wanted was to, you know, be a singer. I don't know. So you have to really somehow know yourself. Like in The Matrix, the main theme of the Matrix movie was like, know yourself. To know what you're going after, and you get what you go for. You get what you go for. But maybe it is too much to take on DJing at the same time as taking on, but maybe it isn't. There are complementary skill sets. You know, look, the truth of the matter is, what you guys have embarked upon is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. If you wanted to become plumbers, it'll be like 100 times easier. Or like, even like a doctor might be even 100 times easier. Because there's a path that you could follow, and that you could, if you just stay on this path, you'll get there. There's no guarantees in what you're doing here. And there's no one way to do this right. So you can try all sorts of things and never make it. And it's sad to say that some people here will never make it. You know, so these are the realities of what you've embarked upon. So I don't know if that answers your question in any way, but I hope it gives you a little insight into what we're talking about here. All right, so let's get into some other ideas. Learn how to give yourself a permission to dream. And here's the thing, and a lot of times maybe you even realize this is happening. A lot of times we make a differentiation between ourselves and those artists that are like accomplished, and those artists that are like that can be super creative, and we don't feel that we have the same right to dream the same even possibilities that they have. The truth is, what was that SNL skit where he says, I put my pants on one day, one leg at a time, but after I do that, I go out and make hit records. The truth is, people are just people. Everybody has the same thing, unless you're like this virtuoso with these gifts given to you. But even then, training trumps talent anytime. It really does. You can be the most talented person, have the most potential. I'm sure everybody's heard that, and never go anywhere. And somebody talented and dedicated could definitely bring it home. So, a lot of times we believe that we're not worthy of these great ideas. We are. We are. These ideas are worthy. Now, the point is, there's a couple of things you have to decide here. Are you going to make yourself happy? Well, that's great. That'll be easy. Pulling out something from the ether, giving it context, packaging it. You're happy. You're good with it. But then there's the rest of everybody else. Does everybody else agree? And that's the other point. Now, that's the harder part, to get everybody else to agree. Now, if your purpose, if your idea, and I've met people that, I had this one student, he's an amazing guy. Went through the whole course. At the end of the course, everybody plays their tracks for each other. Played the track for us. We all sat there, riveted to our seats. It was the most amazing track. All the students were just like, played this track for us. And I thought, this guy is a genius. Oh my God. And then I turned around, I was like, congratulating him or whatever. And then I asked him, so what are you going to do? What are your plans? Are you thinking about a label? What are you going to do? He goes, no, I was thinking of playing it for my aunt. And then, I'm serious. I said, the guy was a kind of a weirdo this way. And then maybe my mom, I'm not sure if my mom would actually listen to it, but that's really it. That's all I want to do. And he was serious about it. He was totally serious about it. All he wanted to do was just make something he was happy with. Now, if that's your goal, more power to you. It should be a little easier to get done than the other one, which is to make everybody else think that it's amazing. And that's a little bit harder to do. So we have to define what it is that we really want and be honest with ourselves as to what it is that we really want. If making yourself happy is all you really want, then okay. But a lot of times people say that that's what they really want, but they really don't want just that. They want a little more than that. They want other people to feel the same way about their music. A lot of times, and it's happened to me, and I've had to learn to do this, I've had to change what I wanted in music in order to make other people like it more than they did before. So not call it dumb it down. Here's the thing. One of the biggest challenges I had to go through in my career earlier on was that I was always really talented at being able to make any sound I wanted. I could make ambient music, I could make house music, I could make techno, I could make breakbeat. I was proud of it. I was like, yeah, I'm the man. So I would make these early albums, making all these different types of sounds, and then giving it out to everybody, and then putting them out. The label would put it out, and then everybody would listen to it and go. Critics would write amazing things about it. Oh, this is amazing music. But then get to the record store, people didn't know where to put it. Like, well, is this a techno record? This is a house record, or is this a? And then the market would be confused. Like, is he a techno guy? Is he an ambient producer? Is he like a electronica producer? So nobody knew how to categorize me or how to take me. Some people liked the ambient stuff, but didn't like this stuff. So I, in order to succeed, had to kind of narrow down the parameters as to what I was going to, that would work. And then really the thing that, the logos that came to my mind that actually made the breakthrough was the dance floor. And I imagined the dance floor. I visualized the dance floor. And I visualized people dancing. And I visualized what type of crowd it would be that would be dancing. And then I thought, if I could make these people move, then I'm doing the right thing. And for the next few years, that's all I did. It was a little boring to me because I wanted to go into different directions, and I wanted to go into live music, and I wanted to add some psychedelics to things, and But it was frustrating because I couldn't, because I wanted to and I could, and this would have pleased me. But no, what it took was to kind of narrow down the vision to something very targeted. And not necessarily my first preference, but it made me money. Yes?
Do you feel like once you accomplished your intention for sharing, that it gave you freedom to then experiment more with those styles later on?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. When you have success, people will more easily take an experiment. That you go, oh, wow, look at this guy or this girl did. That's amazing. That's have you heard? But then, when you're a nobody, you try some experiment like that, and they're like, what's he trying to do? So people are more receptive to it. But even then, you still have to kind of walk the line. It's sad. It's just not really. It could be sad if you want to see it as sad, but it's a reality of it. You do have to set parameters, and you do have to set a very kind of focused and have clarity on that. Once again, clarity. It all really, if there's anything you can walk out of this talk from here today is with the word clarity in your head. And clarity, I can get biblical with it. The Bible says if without a vision, the people will perish, right? So, not trying to make you. It's Sunday. Come on, guys. I have to. Okay, so I'm gonna try to wrap this up and try to make some music in a little bit. Which, wouldn't it be funny if I actually never made any music? Okay, another thing. Maybe this is clear to you, maybe it's not, but I have to say it. Associate with people that are more talented than you. Do not associate with those that are less talented than you are. Now, not trying to make you an asshole here and say that you're not, get away from me, you're not as talented as I am. But don't spend your precious creative moments with people that are not at your level or above your level, preferably above your level. You need to be brought up, not to be pulled down. And it's easier to be pulled down than to be brought up. So, just a couple of wrong influences in your life and then you're off the rails. It's not a guarantee that just being with somebody more creative than you is going to pull you up, but it is at least a chance there. So associate with those people that can inspire you. And what can that do? Let's see, I have some things that getting you. Let me. I think I have it all written down here. I'll just wing it. The creative people, you can get an insight into the way the creative mind thinks, especially super creative people. You can learn to be creative by watching these people. Anybody ever had that situation? You see somebody like, oh yeah, well that was pretty easy, and it's elusive to you, but you just come across it easier when you can understand that somebody is what somebody's actually doing. So and they have a creative people. Or people that are more creative than you have a way of demystifying the creative process. Because we get all scared, like, oh, the creative process, ooh, it's so scary. And then you see somebody who could just cut right through the whole thing, that fog, and like, whoa, okay, that didn't seem that hard. Maybe it'll encourage me, or give me courage to just jump in there and try it myself. And I'm sure it might be cool, it may not be cool, but the chances are that, at least you have a chance. That's the point. All right, so moving on. Refine your sense of taste is another thing that really, DJs, we talk a lot about DJs, and a lot of people here maybe are into dance music or whatever type of music, but one of the best combinations that I know for creative teams are the DJ with the super studio nerd, right? And why? Because the DJ has the ear, the refined ear. They know what works on the dance floor. They know what doesn't work on the dance floor. They know how to provoke things. They know what's fresh. They just have that. They've been working on that for a very long time, and that's all they've been working on because and if they're successful, they've really gotten to this level of proficiency with this. The creative nerd, all they've been working on is gear, how to make a sound, how to use compression, how to use this, how to use that, how to get it all. And now When these two guys, gals, people come together in the studio and can have a good relationship, they're unstoppable. They're unstoppable because they can, go be, kind of work, and they can do real thinking, because real thinking needs two people to happen. Other than that, you're just criticizing yourself, right? It's hard to think. You're just criticizing yourself most of the time. When you try to think on your own, you have to kind of become two people in your head. And that's what has to happen when you work on your own. You have to kind of become two people in your head. You have to become the person with taste and the person that's technical, and that's a very hard thing to do alone. So, like I said, these creative teams of the DJ with the person that has all the technical knowledge, they are unstoppable. Because the sense of taste that the DJ has should not be, put to the side. So what I say to you, if you're in the game and you only are working alone and you prefer to work alone, then you have to foster this other side of you that has a well-refined sense of taste, that understands what is good, what works, how it's going to impact people, what people get off on. If you can't have that, then you have no business trying to make the other stuff, because all you'll be doing is making yourself happy at that point. So how do you make the other people happy? Well, you understand what works. So if you're working alone, you have to kind of become these two people in your head, the technical nerd and the DJ. Let's call it the DJ for simplification reasons. And you kind of become schizophrenic and go back and forth and learn how to manage that in your head. It's true. It's sad, but it's true. And that's the way. Or get yourself a partner who has the skills that you don't have, and can bring you up, and you can bring them up, and together you guys can go laugh all the way to the bank, right? Okay, so the next thing is get yourself around the right sounds. The right sound design is an important thing, and if you're a sound design nerd, then you already have that. But if not, find a way to procure the right sounds, because the right sound, I always say, the right sound can help you or can really foster the right part. You write with just a regular piano, or you get like a synth that has this amazing new sound. You're like, ooh, oh, that's pretty. Oh yeah, look at that. Listen to that, and that suddenly it just comes right out because you have the right sound. So get yourself around the right sound. Explore new sounds. Separate your sound design time from your writing time. So dedicate time to your sound design. Before I start any endeavor, any album creation or anything, spend at least a few weeks on just curating sounds, making new sounds, getting the dirty material, the raw material that I'm going to use to create these hits with. So don't think it's just going to come, that the sounds will be there, just because you're that cool. No, actively pursue this. Actively pursue getting all your sounds together, so that when it's time to write the right part, that sound will inspire you to do so. And understand what duress can do in your life. And what I mean by that is when things are tough, understand how you react to that. There's kind of, there's a spectrum, and there's like two polar sides of how people react, and I've seen when duress hits our life. Like when things are tough, there's a group, an art group from the 80s, I guess I'll call them now. I guess they're still around, called the KLF. Anybody know who the KLF are? The KLF had these hits in the ancients and Moo. They called themselves all these crazy names. They had all these hits back in the day. And one of the things they did, one of the coolest things they did is they took £1 million, they put a nail through the Queen's face, and then they burned it all and sold it for more than £1 million. So that was really cool. But one of the other cooler things they did was they wrote a book called The Manual. And the manual was this kind of how to write a hit, or how to write a #1 hit in the UK dance charts. I think that was the manual on how to do that. And it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but not really. There was a lot of kind of truisms in the whole thing. And there were a couple of artists that actually went and did it, like Edelweiss, this Austrian band. They went out and they actually put together a hit, a #1 hit, by going through the manual. But one of the things they talked about in the manual is that, You know, it works best when you're skint and on the dole, and that's like UK speak for broke and on welfare. Because you have nothing to lose. You kind of have your back against the wall, and it's like do or die, and it activates all the kind of, you know, fight or flight things, and it gets you kind of ready for war, and you just like, you're hungry, and you're kind of like Eye of the Tiger. Remember that from Rocky 3? That works for some. I've seen that happen. It certainly worked for me. But I've also seen people fall apart under duress and just give it up. So understand, again, going back to that whole thing about who are you, know yourself, understand what duress is going to do for you. It's just a quick point. Let's see. So let's get to some techniques. I'm almost done with my gigantic talk. Sorry, guys. Was this worth it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So I have some techniques here that have worked for me in the past, and I'd just like to share them with you. Let's see. Let's get something going. Let's get some sound finally in here. What time is it? Sorry, Max. So let's get a kick drum from somewhere here. Let's just grab anything. And just give you one of my first. So let's see. Oh yeah, I have a mouse. I don't do well with like with track pads. So let's see, something I know. Do you have like a regular 80, 909, 707 kits in your computer, Max?
Yeah, there's an 808 and a 909.
Where?
And the drum rack. Drums.
I am in drums.
Oh, the very top.
The very top?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there we are. I was right on it. Okay, let's just go with a 909 to start, and let's get which is the. So let's just get a kick drum here. 4 on the floor. Yay, sound! Finally, right? So easy enough with house and techno, right? Just 4 on the floor. I'm done. I'm a genius. All right, let's go for some stupid stuff. But like, you know what? Some of the times you kind of be willing to like throw away any kind of any self-respect sometimes to make things happen. So let's see what samples Max has in here. Let's get this. Why do we got a preview from them, Max?
You can go in the user library.
User library. Oh, all I need is like some Loop Master stuff. What do you have? Percussion, perfect. Percussion. 3. Okay, we'll start with that. So let's build a kit. Let's start with drum rack and let's go to where was I? Did I just miss my spot again? Oh yeah, there I go, sorry. I'll just throw these in here. So, all right, so I got these 3 parts. So now, these 3 sounds. They're pretty cool, pretty, kind of everybody knows them somehow. So I have a choice now. I could either like listen for a part in my head, right? And then just like, okay, I'm gonna make that part that I hear in my head, which I do very often. And not to say that you shouldn't do that, actually maybe start by doing that always. But when you get caught into like these, these writer's block moments, I like to do things like a technique I call chicken scratch. Does anybody ever see me do it in class? I used to do that all the time in class, this chicken scratch technique. Here we go. Check it out, guys. What the hell is he doing? Really? I paid $20 for this? What the fuck? All right. So now I turn this up and I take a part, maybe half a bar. And I'll grab this part. Oh yeah, that's a techno track. I'm a genius, guys. Thank you very much. You know, you could just, and here's where like your sense of taste goes into play. So you could set something up that almost automatically does it. They get something going, and you know, I use quantizing so that it kind of is all on beat, right? And I just throw it in there, search around. And I just pick and choose something, you know, and I just keep it. So yeah, it sounds stupid, it sounds dumb, but you don't believe how many times this has gotten me out of a rut. Now, it's not that I recommend that this is the way you go writing your tracks, not at all. It's just an example as how by mechanically working it or brute forcing it, you can actually pull stuff out of the ether that should remain there by taking advantage of your sense of taste. Okay, so don't go around saying that all I said to do was just use quantizing and act like a monkey, which you can, and some do. I know some producers that actually make $1 million like that. Okay, but it is just an insight as to how you can liberate yourself from this idea that everything has to happen right here, and that you're like, oh yeah, ooh, I will, you know, no, there are other ways. There are other ways. So let's keep going. Let me throw a filter on this whole thing. I'll let's see, let's try auto filter. I'll drop that in there. And change it to yeah, we'll keep that for now. Now let's go get another track going, and let's see what's happening here. Well, here we have our if you notice, I'm not stopping to cry about things, to contemplate, to wonder. One of the tips I have on here from I think number 11 is the first cut is the deepest. What I say about that, it's like, hey, you're the vocalist, right? How many times have you experienced it? You've gone on the mic and the first thing that you recorded was the one, was the right take. It's the first thing, it might not be the one, but a lot of the times, at least 50% of the times, the first thing that comes out of your mouth, the first line that you write, the first thing is really the one. But a lot of times we spend so much time second guessing and so used to like habitually second guessing that we're sure that it can't be the one, that it must be like the 10th thing that I tried that is the one. Give it a chance. Now, look, one thing I did last year in my training to get back to like a perfect fighting condition when it comes to like making tracks. I set up gear all on the table about this size, you know, a lot of gear, little pieces like this and that and that. And I said, you know what, I'm just gonna have fun with this. Every morning I would drop my kids off at school, I would come home, I would spend an hour, and I would time myself, an hour, just writing a track, doing the drums on this thing, doing this and that, doing. Okay, hour's done, hit record. Record it. Kind of, you know, going through everything that I thought was cool. Stop recording, put it away. I did that for 3 months. I did 90 tracks, just like that. Never stopped to listen to any of them. And this is I know, you know, that this is the way that I have to do things to get back into fighting condition. So I didn't just stop to ponder, to cry, to wonder, nothing. I just did them. Let them shelve them for about, 3-4 months. Then went back and listened. There was a lot of crap in there. But there was also some amazing stuff in there. And the fact that I gave it some time, some distance, so that I could have some perspective on the whole thing, let my sense of taste, my highly developed sense of taste, be immediately, yesing and knowing on what was going on in there. So learn to work fast in the studio. Learn to just, and that comes with everything that I've been saying today. The organization, every bit of training, everything will get you to a point where you can work fast, because when you can work fast, the ideas can come and you can put them down. Do they suck? Maybe. Are they amazing? Possibly. If you don't do anything, what happens if you don't work fast, and most of the time is you double, you record, you second guess, you re-record, you erase, you start again, you end up with nothing. And any move is better than no move at all. That's what The Sopranos taught me in season 1. Anyway, okay, so where were we? We were trying to... by the way, I can't hear what's going on over there, so this might suck, and it probably does. But I'm going to grab this guy over here, which has another one of my secret chaos tricks, which is... First I'll make a line. So let me just...
You wanted to give you a bit of...
Oh yeah, that might be okay. The sound card died here now. Let's see what happened here with the sound card. Ah, come on. That's why I hate these trackpads. All right. Okay, so hopefully we have it configured the same way. Yeah. Okay, so I should hit play and that should start. Okay, so now this 303 thing is starting. Get another track going and then listen for my... Going here. All right, so where is my 303? There it is. This is a bassline synthesizer, and what it does is just creates basses, or whatever you want to do. If you can play it higher, and then it could be some sort of line. I'm going to clear the part, and this is really fun because this type of tool really allows me to write fast. Like I told you, writing fast is super important. The old 303, this is a newer clone of it. The old 303 was super hard to program. You needed kind of like a whole weekend and a bottle of Adderall to like make sure that you could that you could capture the idea. But this one, they made the programming on the sequencer super easy. So now I just have to like just let it run, and let me just play the music that's going on behind it. And then I could just write there's a little keyboard here, and I could just write to my parts content. So, and that should be a little louder. Let me just increase the level of that by maybe here. Just lower this guy here. Well, that was quick. And then this allows me to hit like low and then high on here, and then we can exit here, slide there. Modulation. Wow, I'm a genius. Not really. I just know the right tools to get me going. But this thing has even more cool things that actually shouldn't be allowed because it's kind of cheating, but who cares? Our bank account doesn't care. We have a thing called mutate, so I could just take that pattern and kind of randomize the notes. Oh, look at that. Now I can just focus on my sense of taste. My sense of taste is the only thing going down now. Change a little bit. Alright. If I'm not happy with any of those notes or whatever, I can even go crazier and hit generate, which is actually randomly creating a pattern for me. Abe, what are you teaching us? What are you showing us, Abe? What are you showing us? This is wrong. This shouldn't be allowed, right? It exists. And there's plenty of shortcuts in technology that help us do these type of things. Now, if you think it's only about technology, it's not. Back in the day, producers would sit on the back of a couch and hire a bunch of really talented people. And they'd just make them play. And they'd say, hey, let's keep that. And let's keep that. Actually, the traditional idea of what a producer was a person that had a well-defined sense of taste and understood how to, kind of like a project manager, how to bring the project home. How to make it so that the project became a hit. They didn't have to have all the technical know-how. They didn't have to have, all they really had to have was that ear. So what I'm trying to show you guys with this little demo here is that creativity doesn't only happen by brute force. It also happens by applying your well-refined sense of taste. All right, so let me give you some more of my last points. I know I'm running out of time here.
You can run over at it.
Okay, I will. Okay, so chicken scratch method should be applied all the time. If I had like a whole keyboard of percussion parts, man, I could write parts all day, without even trying, just, pretending I'm trying. But that is, what's required is that your sense of taste is there. Because if you don't know that you've stumbled upon an amazing part, then you can't really, take advantage of that. Okay, copy and modify is another kind of shortcut to these things. And a lot of times, like, students are starting to learn. I don't know, you guys starting with Ableton classes or whatever. Students start out and the big monster, I think, in all production is the arrangement. Wouldn't you say so, John? Hi, John Selway. The big monster is arrangement, and most people don't know how to tackle that. And I have to say, arrangement scares me as well. It is one of the scarier parts. It's the easiest thing, well, easier than an arrangement is to start a track. So what most people do is they go ahead and they start a track, and they get to the point where they should start arranging, and then they go, oh, well, I'll start another track. And then they end up with like a hard drive full of like 5,000 tracks that never went anywhere, right? So arrangement could be a problem. So going ahead and looking at what other people do as far as arrangements is not a bad idea. So if you like some certain producers, and this is not a thing that I think you should be doing on a constant basis, but at least to kind of get you off the ground, is that you grab some tracks you like and drop it on to Ableton, warp it. You guys know how to do that, right? And then build your track around the structure of that track. Not to say that that's an admirable endeavor in the least, but at least it will demystify the whole thing, and it'll give you an understanding of what those that know and have made things that work before that would actually work when it comes to the dance floor. A lot of people don't understand these. There's like these rules to the dance floor, like you could. It's almost a little boring, and I try to stay away from them as much as I can, but I can't because it's their truisms. Like, hey, things in 8-bar counts really work, or 4 bars, right? 3 bars is a little weird, 5 bars or 7 bars is a little weird, but you can make that work too. But most of the time, if you want to be safe, 8 bars, 4 bars work, right? But sometimes when you're starting off, you don't understand these things. Also things like, oh yeah, kind of the beginning, when like in techno, for example, the workup of a track should go to about 1.5 minutes, and in 1.5 minutes, something should kind of break down or drop or whatever, and then it should kind of do something from there on. And there's all sorts of other rules, the length-wise, how long it should be, how long it shouldn't be, these things. But a lot of times when you're starting out, you don't understand these kind of basic, level 1 rules that are now learned by you and then broken, hopefully, after you learn them. So copy and then modify the structures that you might see in something else. Alter your state. I talked to you about altering your state. Alter your state as much as you can. Listen to great music. How about that? Just take time to listen to music that's going to inspire you. And it doesn't have to be in the same genre of the music that you're making. But really can trigger things a lot of times. And if you listen to even professional, well-accomplished musicians, you hear their guitar solos, their guitars, you hear the guitar solos, and what you'll hear is like riffs that reappear and revisit in every kind of solo they've ever made. They might be modified and changed enough so that you might not really have a problem with it. But there's always these things that are always kind of being revisited. So you tend to do that yourself. You kind of work your way into this kind of setup in your mind, and you're working your music, and it's like just going round and round, and you can end up this kind of echo chamber of your own music and your own style and your own production techniques. And this can be broken by suddenly listening to something else that kind of just like, whoa, why didn't I ever try that? Or why didn't I ever go there? So please take time to just listen to other music to get you guys going. Take chances. Take a chance. Take a chance on being wrong. Take a chance of making a track nobody's gonna like, and or because sometimes you never know. I never knew. Like, here's a story. John is in the room right now. I can tell the story. Remember I told you about the story about that track that I sold 25,000 records of. I made that track, and I thought it was a little cheesy, to be honest with you, when I finished it. I really didn't feel like it was my best work, and I didn't feel like it should represent me. Now I feel a little different, but
Can we hear it?
right now, I don't have it.
You're on the internet. There's
Oh, it's on the internet? No way. Okay, so I got to go to YouTube's. Let's see. That would be okay. Sorry. One of the cuts was what happened. All right, so we'll do that one. It's not playing.
You might have to set the.
What did I do wrong? Do I have to replay again? It's the input device, sorry. Let me get right to it. It's just
Yo, remember the Omen? What happened? Yo, Dorian Gray. Yo, kid. What happened? What? Berlin, the planet. What happened? Trezor. Oh, they're still there. The limelight. NYC. What happened? Can somebody tell me? Studio 54. We all know what happened. The box. Chi-Town. What happened? Mars. What happened? Ultra Shot.
So basically, I'm going through a bunch of tracks. I mean, like old clubs that closed down, and the thing was like, what happened? What happened to all these clubs? It kind of struck a chord, and people, got into it, whatever. So the story goes like this, and I don't know how John's going to feel when I'm telling the story, but John used to go with me to every mastering session that I made back in the days, and John used to actually etch, because I made these etched, like, look at this right here. This might be John's work right here. Is this your work? No, that's my work. That's my work. But John would etch these records on the actually the plate and write all the information etched, and when they were pressed, they would come out on the pressing, so I didn't have to do any artwork. Being cheap about it and creative, I guess. But anyway, so I go to the master of the thing, and I was unsure about the record myself. I was just like, it's like whatever. I knew that I had to keep on releasing records. I had to keep on releasing records to kind of keep my presence out there and people know. So I felt like a pressure to like release every so often, and I knew that it was time that the way that I did it was that I would book the mastering session, not even having the track, and just went crazy getting the track ready so that I would have a deadline, because deadlines were the only thing that really actually kept me going. And that's the same for everybody. When you have a deadline, it's actually going to happen, right? Other than that, you keep pushing forward the deadline, whatever, or back the deadline. So I go up to the mastering session. John joins me, and I'm not sure about the tracks. I thought they were cheesy. There were 2 other tracks alongside of it. Finished mastering the tracks. On the way down on the elevator, John turns to me and says, those tracks, not really sure about it, Abe. I was like, John, what? Why? Why didn't you tell me that before I mastered this record? Are you crazy? Yeah, but I didn't really want to get into your creative, process there. I just didn't want to. I was like, oh, so depressed. On the way home, I was so depressed. I was like, I made a mistake. I knew it. I should have just stuck to my feeling that it was not going to work. And now John kind of validated it. I think John was, to be honest, was just speaking about an effect that I used on the vocal, and that's all he was talking about, really. Not that the whole track sucked, but I took it as, of course, you take criticism super deep when people give it to you. So I didn't know that this track was going to work, and I thought that it was actually going to be overlooked. And I knew that from experience that most people don't really hold bad tries against you after you have a hit. So you can have 10 horrible tracks and then have a hit. Nobody thinks about those horrible tracks anymore. You're the guy or gal that did the amazing record that we're all listening to now, all one half, right? Oh. So I said, okay, whatever, water under the bridge. But lo and behold, it worked. And it was a chance I took, which I almost didn't take because of John, that guy over there. But in the end, it worked out. So take chances. How am I doing here? Yeah. Don't immediately dismiss your experiments as well. Like as you could see, we were trying here. Don't immediately dismiss your experiments. Don't be quick to like erase something or get rid of something because you think that it's not cool. You actually are the worst person sometimes to say, especially in the moment that you're in, because you're so self-critical and you're doing that. You're not really thinking, you're just self-criticizing. And, it goes really deep. It goes really deep as to what we think of ourselves and what we deserve in life. And it really, this could be a therapy session. It really can. Give yourself limitations. Now, somebody was talking to me about the 10-minute track thing before. They do track in 10 minutes. That's cool. I find that they're interesting to watch on the YouTubes. But I do practice something like that quite often. I always encourage my students to do the same, to set up a stopwatch and to like say, I'm going to do something in this amount of time. Because it gets back to what I was saying. It's just, you just go ahead and do things and know that something has to get done. There's a deadline that you have to meet. And then actually something does come out, whether it's great or whether it's not, it's better than nothing. Really better than nothing. So run with a stopwatch from time to time. Train yourself. Do what I did. I don't really recommend making 90 tracks and then, not listening to them. But that's what I thought I had to do. And I would really give myself 1 hour to prepare and then record. And it was one of the most amazing exercises that I've ever conducted. It actually brought me back from total rusty guy, bloated in academia, just talking about these concepts. Go out and do it. It's easy, and actually doing it. It's they say those that cannot do teach, right? So it got me back to doing it. Let's see, what else do I have for you? Think less, and that goes back to what I spoke to you before about training and getting rid of those layers of mechanical thought that you have to go through to get things done so that you can just immediately be in the moment. So thinking less, never force it, let it come out. When you're in your head, you're dead. You think that mantra if you want. And this is where practice can help you be in the zone without having to think about it. All right, and I have a couple more. And I think I'm going to finish just in time. Get a mentor. Get a mentor. And I'm serious about that. Or you don't want to call him a mentor or her a mentor, a coach of some sort, or somebody to hold you accountable for things. It's very hard to keep yourself on track. It's very hard to see everything that you need to be doing when you're so deep in the whole thing. Get somebody to like come in and evaluate where you're at and see what your strengths are, see what your weaknesses are, put a strategy together, help you think this whole thing through. You wouldn't believe the power of mentorship. I've done this in the last few years. I've spent a lot of time mentoring people on how to do exactly the same, and it's just amazing how much more. I mean, you can even say tenfold would be not an exaggeration as to how much your output grows. Because when you're by yourself, it's really tough. I know, you could pay somebody to be your mentor, that's for sure. But you could also have somebody that could help you do it, a friend, somebody that's doing the same, that maybe can, or maybe some sort of user group, or or a teacher here, for example, right? Do we do that here? Do we teach kids here? Or a teacher of some sort? That's why, and this is not me trying to sell you classes from Max, but it's just, it's really something that I've really seen in firsthand. And when I'm mentoring people a lot, or have been. The growth is unbelievable. The growth is unbelievable. You could actually reach your potential when somebody's there to like hold you accountable to something and give you a deadline, and when you have your, let's say, weekly meetings or whatever about the project, you have to report on your actions or your lack thereof. And well, so get a mentor or a coach or a friend. And my last point is something, again, I've kind of alluded to earlier, but don't be such a fanboy or fangirl about anybody. I know we got our people that we admire as artists and producers. I know we think that they're untouchable, but they are touchable. They really are. And the first way to make sure that they are untouchable is to be an ultimate fanboy or fangirl. Because you will not want that to go away. You want to keep that fandom in you. You want to keep this venerating this person. They are human, just like you. They may have more hits, that's true. But if you're ever going to get there, you have to stop giving them the importance that sometimes you give them that takes away from the potential that we have, that gives us a glass ceiling and locks us into a box, stopping us from thinking, well, yeah, but that's this person. Of course they're going to do that every time. If I thought like that, and that's one of the first things I broke through, and somebody told me the other day, a friend of mine called Jason told me that I was too dumb to realize my limitations. Maybe that's true, but it's helped me out. So be dumb. Anyway, that'll be as much as I have for you guys today. I'd like to open up the floor for any questions or comments or concerns. Yes?
I have a quick question. When you said that in the 80s when you started out, you had your 8-channel mixer, you had a drum sampler. Do you remember which sampler you had?
I had a Casio FZ1 sampler.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the first 16-bit sampler. Bought it in 1987.
How much, memory, do you remember how long you could sample on
It had 1 megabyte, and then I bought the expansion board for 2 megabytes.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Still have it.
Wow.
So, yeah, it is awesome. Anybody else? Yes, Max.
Who were your biggest idols
My biggest idols?
besides John?
Well, I was gonna say John, But, well, it's hard to say what my biggest idols. I get, it gets very cliche if I start speaking about my idols. I think Kraftwerk really did a lot to me. I think number one in synth world was Thomas Dolby. Thomas Dolby was doing crazy stuff that I still wonder how he did in the early 80s with synthesizers and drum machines and the like. And Kraftwerk changed my life, back in the days where Kraftwerk was hip hop. Because I remember coming up on New York in the handball courts in 7th grade and listening to Trans Europe Express on the boombox, and that was hip hop. It was just what we listened to. It was later that shit kind of went sideways, and then came Planet Rock and all that other stuff. But that was all Kraftwerk, Numbers and stuff like that. Yes, Max.
I have another, this is a deeper question, which I'm sure you will have something to say about. But some people, especially when you're being creative, they believe not to listen to other artists too much so that you're not influenced by other artists too much. And then there's another side that will say, well, in fact, you should be listening to other people to get ideas. So where do you draw the line there between?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I am experiencing that all the time. A lot of times I know that I'm very easily influenced by things. So when I'm in the thick of like really being creative, I probably don't listen to much of the same type of music, just not to, especially if it's the what's happening now type of music. I might do that in the earlier stages where I'm trying to like see what's happening and what's working on the dance floor or wherever I'm shooting for. But once I'm in the thick of it, like I'm arranging and making the music, and it's hard for me to listen to something else without getting influenced. I might still do it, but the truth of the matter is that I'm going to get influenced. Just me personally, and I think all people have different thresholds for these things. But you have to know yourself. Again, you have to know yourself and what's going to happen to you when you do. I do think that listening to great music, and when I take a break to listen to great music, a lot of the times I will totally pick a different genre altogether than what I'm working on, just to get really fresh, delightful sounds that are not really gonna force my hand towards a certain direction when it comes to what I'm making. They still might inspire me and change me and give me some ideas for what I'm making, but it won't make me be a cookie cutter, which is the thing that I dread the most. It's really hard not to be a cookie cutter, especially when you're trying to make it. Yeah.
What's your personal something that gets you excited about New York music right now? Is it a place you go to hear music or a certain club? Is there something that gets you excited about New York?
But even, it just sounds corny, a meeting like this, really. This is the next level. This really is. And, we did it for a while. All the people that were here, Brent just got here, and John and Max, we did it for a while at Dubspot or whatever. But this type of meeting, this type of because everything else is not as fresh as this to me. I've been there, seen it all, and all of it is this kind of, monster eating its own tail. It's like a dragon eating its own tail. It's like what is commercial music or music that works or whatever. It's just it's a terrible game. I know we want that, and that's what a lot of people are here for. But this type of community, people that are into making music, sharing music, exploring new things, giving each other a place a forum to do these things. This is, to me, the thing that makes me really tick. And I'm super happy to be here and doing it because I haven't done it in a while. So in New York, what makes me most happy? If you could ask me to go to a club or to come here, I would come here instead. You owe me, Max. All right, guys, I think that's it. I think that's the time we have. I think we have to start the open house after this.
Give it up.